Welcome. I'm your host, Christina Haskin, and tonight my guest is Felicia Klliment. She's a nutritionist counselor, and she was a professor at City College in New York City, and she's also the author of a wonderful book, The Acid Alkaline Balanced Diet, which talks about the importance of that balance and also acid waste and how that affects your health. So I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your background, how you got interested in this field.
I'll tell you how I'd always been interested for a long time in holistic health as opposed to orthodox. But as far as the book is concerned, two things happened to me at about the same time, which told me in what direction I should go if I wanted to write a book. One was I got acid reflux, and the second was I was teaching a course in chemistry for the first time, just the basic 101 at City College. And in the chemistry course, I learned what really stood out was the fact that everything having to do with the body is acid and alkaline. Acid and alkaline is electrons and protons. And you know, we're made up of atoms. And every atom has a certain number of protons and different proportions. And I thought, my heavens, I have acid reflux. That means I must have too much acid and not enough alkaline. And that gave me an idea for a book. The medical condition I had, what caused it, and I worked out how I could get rid of it. And that gave me an idea for a book. The medical condition I had, what caused it, and I worked out how I could get rid of it. So I had the condition, the cause, the effect, and the cure. Everything you need to write a good story,
right,
even if it's just a nonfiction book.
What did you find out about? How did you cure your acid reflux?
Well, first I'll say what gave it to me. I was eating grains, which I'm allergic to, or what I can't digest, grains, and a lot of spicy foods, and fish. And that gave me acid reflux. And I found that when I didn't eat those foods, the acid reflux went away. But I needed more than that. I needed a food that would alkalize my body and help correct the damage that the allergy-causing foods that I couldn't digest had done. So I went on a potato, something very bland, just the opposite of the spicy stuff I had been eating. Potatoes and what could be more bland than white potatoes, and vegetables. And I cooked them semi-raw in a little bit of water. And after so many months, the acid reflux went away. Obviously, the inflammation caused by this huge amount of acid I was eating had been healed.
Why is the balance so important in the bodies? You know, I've read you had it in your book where if you don't have the proper balance, it can start a degenerative process in your cells and lead to some of the diseases that we have today.
Well, first it's important to have the correct acid-alkaline pH, and different parts of the body have different pH levels. But what's really important is to reduce the acid waste from undigested food. That's really the key.
What is acid waste?
Okay, acid waste is when food isn't digested, it's just lying in the digestive tract, and eventually it turns acidic. And I say waste because it can't be used. Undigested food is useless to the body, and anything that's useless becomes toxic. And this is what that toxic waste does. As it flows, eventually it leaves the digestive tract and goes into the general circulatory system. And as that acid waste courses through the blood, it's sharp. Acid are sharp particles. It scratches the inside walls of the arteries and causes little bumps to form. And that becomes, the inside walls of the arteries become inflamed. And inflammation, when it's chronic, long-lasting, causes the veins to harden, because there is always a chance of veins leaking when they're scratched. So what does the body do to protect the veins? It puts fatty plaques on any injured parts.
With cholesterol, right?
There's cholesterol, there are triglycerides, there's calcium. And this is like a bandage. The body is doing this to protect you from that the causes or the effects of inflammation. So it's really in a way, it's a good thing. It's better to have those fatty plaques covering up the injured arteries than not, because you could suddenly get an aneurysm, a leak in the artery, and that would be the end.
If you've had a lot of scratches and stuff like that, can you reverse that by getting rid of your acid waste? Or?
When you get rid of the acid waste, and a lot of times eating something very sour, for instance, lemon water, if you drink lemon water, that removes the fatty plaques from the arteries. And somehow they're neutralized and then they're eliminated by the body.
In your book, you talk a little bit about the type of genetic ancestry you had as to what suits you in your diet. And so if your ancestors were meat gatherers or plant gatherers, so tell us a little bit about why it's important to know what kind of body
well, let's say you were from England, and the English, of course, are great beef eaters, and throughout their history they've been heavy on meat. Well, that means their enzymes, their digestive enzymes, adapted to that meat diet, and you have those digestive enzymes that will help you digest meat, but won't do a whole lot if you eat too many grains. So you have to stick to the diet of your ancestors. That's not always possible, because sometimes you have ancestors from India and maybe France. Well, what do? Then you have to test yourself to see what metabolic type you are to know what your diet should be.
So how does one do the test? Do they have to get a blood test?
Okay, it's very simple. You can do it yourself. On an empty stomach, you take a 50 milligram niacin tablet and wait to see how you react. If you flush, you feel red and hot, it doesn't last very long, then you know you're a meat eater. And the reason is this: meat eaters have too much acid, stomach acid. The result is that niacin, which is also very acidic, just goes over the top and causes symptoms, because then you have even more excess acid. Now, if you're a grain eater, you have no symptoms at all, because grain eaters have too little acid. So when we say meat eater, what you really mean is people who have too much acid, they're digesting too fast. They should be on a meat diet, because that slows the digestive process. And when the digestive process slows, less hydrochloric acid is produced. And if somebody is a grain eater, what it means is that they have too little acid, their digestion is too slow, so they need to eat grains, fish and fowl to speed up their digestion.
So if you're eating the wrong things for your body, then you're making more acid waste, is that?
Well, that's it.